Hi everybody, have a wonderful day. In this video talk about Xiaomi 13T. Subscribe our channel for future updates. Introduction and specs. This year's Xiaomi numeric T series is getting a massive upgrade, putting it closer to the company's true flagship lineup. The new Xiaomi 13T and 13T Pro are still considered upper midrangers, or premium midrangers, whatever you like to call them. But feature-wise, the duo is now much closer to actual flagships. And that's a good thing. The Xiaomi 13T and 13T Pro are now launching with a price tag about €50 higher than their predecessors, but those extra bucks are well worth it. Since this is a Xiaomi 13T review, we will focus on the vanilla, which is slightly different from the Pro version. Even the company said the 13T can be considered as the budget version of the 13T Pro. That's probably why the vanilla is selling with only 256 GB of internal storage. A 512 GB version would cost about as much as a 13T Pro. The 13T settles for a lesser chipset, but still quite promising, MediaTek's new Dimensity 8200 Ultra. It shapes up to be a significant upgrade over the Dimensity 8100 Ultra from last year, at least on paper. The 13T also settles with a slower 67W charging. The rest is absolutely identical. Compared to the last two generations, however, the 13T offers a significant upgrade in the display department. It's supposed to be considerably brighter now and supports 144Hz instead of 120Hz refresh rate, a more capable and versatile camera setup. Finally, the outdated 8MP ultra-wide camera is gone, IP68 certification against water and dust, more premium build with Gorilla Glass 5 and optional vegan leather back cover and a more powerful chip. Interestingly enough, the 12T had 120W fast charging. What's up with that? Maybe Xiaomi wanted more than one notable difference between the 13T and 13T Pro. Arguably, the most notable change in the 13T series is the camera setup. Just like the flagship 13 family, the 13T gets Leica branded lenses along with Leica's usual optimizations for color and processing. Although with a smaller resolution, the main 50MP camera now uses a bigger sensor and is aided by another 50MP unit tasked with 2x zoom stills. One could argue that 2x zoom is achievable using simple crop from today's big sensors, but it's nice to have at least some sort of dedicated zoom camera than none at all. It's been a long time coming. Additionally, the 8MP ultra-wide camera has been swapped for a more adequate 12MP ultra-wide snapper. It's an upgrade we've been waiting for a couple of years now. Last but not least, Xiaomi now promises not 3 but 4 major OS updates and 5 years of security patches, just like its flagship lineups. Xiaomi has put together a duo of very competitive mid-range devices, so the rather minimal price hike of €50 over the last generation can be easily overlooked. But as always, the devil is in the details. Let's dive in. Unboxing the Xiaomi 13T. The Xiaomi 13T comes in a standard package containing all the usual user manuals, the appropriate 67W charger, and a compatible USB-A to USB-C cable. Design and ergonomics. The Xiaomi 13T and 13T Pro share the same design, and since they share pretty much the same hardware, their dimensions are also identical. We received the duo in two different colors, Alpine Blue and Simple Black. The vanilla 13T is the black one. While the 13T is glossy with plastic back imitating glass, Xiaomi offers the 13T series with vegan leather as well, just like the Alpine Blue 13T Pro. The frame is also plastic on both variants, while a Gorilla Glass 5 sheet protects the front. Nothing fancy. Bezels are moderately thin, including the bottom one, while the selfie cutout is what you'd expect. It's not troubling at all. Along with the front, the side frame also adopts a flat design with oval edges. The transition between the back panel and the side frame doesn't feel smooth and seamless and kind of ruins the rather nice curvature of the back. Grip feels rather tight and secure, though. Speaking of the side frame, the right accommodates the power button and the volume rocker, both conveniently positioned right within thumb's reach. The bottom holds the USB-C and the speaker grill, while the top is home to the IR blaster and another opening for the top speaker. Unlike the back panel, the camera piece is made of glass and adopts a square shape and sloped frame to the side. Each camera ring sticks out just a little, but the whole camera island protrudes enough to make the phone unstable on flat surfaces. Conversely, the ultra-wide camera doesn't get a ring of its own and sits just below the LED flash. Barely noticeable. This year, the 13T and 13T Pro get proper IP68 certification against water and dust, so you can have peace of mind around pools or out in the rain. Overall, the build is okay, nothing too special, but it provides a comfortable grip. Even though the body is almost entirely made of plastic, it doesn't feel cheap. Design-wise, well, this is up for debate, but we see the 13T series in line with the current design trends and nothing more than that. Flagship grade 144Hz OLED. Xiaomi is again using the same display for its numeric T series, which is excellent news for the cheaper vanilla 13T as it benefits from the higher-end display at a lower price. And the so-called Crystallis AMOLED display, as Xiaomi likes to call it, is indeed flagship-worthy. It has all the bells and whistles a high-end OLED screen must have. It measures 6.67 inches in diagonal, sports 1220x2712px resolution, supports 12-bit color depth, up to 144Hz refresh rate in the latest available HDR standards, including HDR10+ and Dolby Atmos. Those work with the appropriate content on major streaming platforms like Netflix, Prime Video, YouTube, etc. The 144Hz refresh rate is an improvement from the previous generation as well as a step up from the competition, which usually settles for 120Hz panels. Additionally, the screen supports high-frequency PWM dimming at 2880Hz for those of you who have sensitive eyes and 480Hz touch sampling rate for faster responsiveness during gaming. When it comes to brightness, the screen delivers what Xiaomi has promised in its advertising. In manual mode, the panel reached 500 nits, while in auto mode, it peaked at 1264 nits. Xiaomi also advertises 2600 nits of peak brightness, and we are inclined to believe it, but it's obviously available only when you are playing HDR content. In our 75% APL test, we got up to 1200 nits, so it does have the potential for 2600 nits in certain scenarios. Max display brightness test. White test pattern, 75% fill, nits. Manual mode. Auto mode. Color accuracy with the default color mode isn't amazing as the whites and grays tend to be bluish, but opting for the advanced color presets, the sRGB one to be exact, can bring down the average to 2000 to just 1.5, which is an excellent result. HRR control. The handset offers just two refresh rate modes, default and custom. The default one lets the system choose the most appropriate refresh rate depending on the scenario with a cap of 144 Hz, while the custom preset lets you choose between static 60 Hz and 144 Hz. The default mode is more desirable as the system switches between 30, 60, 90, 120 and 144 Hz. However, the only time we saw 30 Hz was on the always-on display, while we didn't see the screen hit 144 Hz in any of our testing, except for a couple of benchmarks and HRR-compatible games. So, for the most part, the system will go up to 120 Hz in most apps and all of the system menus. Video players, streaming apps, Google Maps and the default camera app, are all locked at 60 Hz, though, for obvious reasons. Battery life. The Xiaomi 13T runs on a 5000 mAh battery, which aligns with the industry's standard and hasn't changed over the last couple of generations either. However, the new 4nm base Dimensity 8200 SoC should, in theory, offer better efficiency. Then again, the display has changed this year, so this may also have an impact. In our active use test, the Xiaomi 13T posted average numbers for web and video use, and above average time for gaming. The Xiaomi 13T Pro and the Poco F5 offer similar times. Charging speed. This year's Xiaomi 13T charging capabilities cap at 67W, down from the 120W from last year's 12T model. Perhaps Xiaomi wanted to artificially separate the two 13 teraseconds even further, and that's why the 13T Pro retained the 120W charging. In any case, 13T is no slouch. It was able to replenish 70% of its charge in the first 30 minutes, while the full charging cycle was complete within 51 minutes. Sure, that's still almost twice as slow as the 13T Pro, but it's still rather competitive. Charging speed. In 15 minutes. In 30 minutes. Time to full charge, from 0%. Speakers. The Xiaomi 13T has a standard hybrid stereo speaker setup, with one of the speakers acting as an earpiece, while the other is downward facing. As a result, the latter is considerably louder, as is usually the case with these setups, but the top speaker has two openings, one at the front and one at the top side of the frame. Loudness is very good, with a -25.5 LUFS score, which is a tad better than the 13T Pro, which is quite odd. We were expecting identical results. Quality-wise, the 13T is pretty good. There is definitely some ringing of the highs and the vocals at around maximum volume, but bass, on the other hand, is quite prominent and tracks sound full overall. The Dolby Atmos tuning makes music feel a bit more spacious, but doesn't seem to improve or deteriorate sound quality overall. MIUI 14 on top of Android 13. The Xiaomi 13T and the 13T Pro run on Android 13-based MIUI 14, and while Google just released Android 14, it's unrealistic to expect Xiaomi to launch the Duo with the latest software. After all, they both launched a week before the official launch of Android 14. However, the OEM promises 4 years of major OS updates, so you can rest assured that your 13T will stay relevant for long. In any case, the Xiaomi 13T runs on a familiar version of MIUI 14, which we've covered in depth in our MIUI 14 Plus Android 13 walkthrough, so we suggest reading that for more information about the software. And since this is a higher-tier Xiaomi phone, most of the features outlined in that article can be found on the 13T and 13T Pro. Performance-wise, MIUI 14 ran smoothly without any hiccups or major performance issues. Quite the opposite, actually. MIUI is one of the smoothest and fastest Android skins around. Benchmark and sustained performance. The Xiaomi 13T runs on the brand new Dimensity 8200 Ultra based on the 4nm manufacturing process. However, the Ultra part remains a mystery as the specs of the Xiaomi marketed Dimensity 8200 Ultra are identical to the initially announced Dimensity 8200. Anyway, the Society is supposed to be a direct successor to the Dimensity 8100, but the specs sheet suggests it's an entirely new chip. Instead of a 4+4 core configuration, the 8200 adopts a more modern 1+3+4 combo. The main core clocked at 3.1 GHz is still Cortex-A78, though, while the second cluster of 3X Cortex-A78 cores is clocked at 3.0 GHz. The energy-efficient cluster of 4X Cortex-A55 cores is ticking at 2.0 GHz. The GPU remains unchanged from the previous generation, though, as it's still the Mali G610 MegaCoulomb SiC. The unit we tested features 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of internal UFS 3.1 storage as opposed to the UFS 4.0 standard used in the 13T Pro. Interestingly, the device is available only with 256 GB storage, while RAM goes up to 12 GB. Perhaps Xiaomi saw the small price gap between the 13T and 13T Pro and decided to offer more storage variants to the 13T Pro, which goes up to 1 TB. So here's how the Xiaomi 13T fares against the competition and against the 13T Pro with its more powerful Dimensity 9200 Society. The benchmark results above show rather insignificant performance gain over the last generation Dimensity 8100 SoC on the Xiaomi 12T. But more importantly, the Dimensity 8200 SoC struggles to keep up with other chipsets in similarly priced phones. After all, many of the 13T's competitors are running either last year's Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 flagship SoC or this year's top-shelf Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. In short, there are a handful of similarly priced alternatives with more powerful chipsets. When it comes to sustained performance, the 13T maintains solid clock speeds during prolonged and intensive workloads. In our CPU throttle test that lasted an hour, the 13T maintained 90% of the CPU's theoretical performance without experiencing any sudden drops in performance. The device's body remained adequately warm and was comfortable to hold. Xiaomi's advertised 5000 square millimeters stainless steel VC seems to be doing a pretty good job at keeping the internals cool. On the other hand, the Dimensity 8200 isn't the most demanding chipset out there. Still, it's good to see the 13T being reliable during potential long gaming sessions. Brand new triple camera setup with two 50-megapixel shooters. The new camera setup on the 13T Duo puts it much closer to the Xiaomi 13 flagship lineup because it brings 3 new cameras on board with Leica lenses and color optimizations. The main camera is now 50 megapixels, not 108 megapixels, but uses a much bigger Sony IMX707 sensor, measuring 1/1.28 inches in size with big 1.22 micrometers individual pixels. The sensor is coupled with an optically stabilized 24mm f1.9 lens. The second 50 megapixels is also a new addition. Previously the T series didn't have dedicated zoom cameras, but this time around, the Duo can rely on a 50 megapixels Omnivision OVD50D 1/2.88, 0.61 micrometers pixels paired with a 50mm f1.9 lens. The ultra-wide camera has also finally changed and is no longer the outdated 8 megapixel shooter. It's now replaced by a 13 megapixels Omnivision OV13B 1/30.6, 1.12 micrometers sensor and f2.2 aperture. Focus is fixed. It's important to note here that the official specs say 12 megapixels ultra-wide camera, and we believe the difference comes from the lens distortion correction. Xiaomi is likely trimming the edges of the image and outputting 12 megapixel stills as a result. Sadly, the selfie camera remains unchanged: 20 megapixels Sony IMX 596.5.8 inches sensor and is coupled with a 26mm f2.2 lens. It was not very good in the past models. Verdict: the Xiaomi 13T is an excellent upper mid-ranger, and the only thing that keeps us from calling it an affordable flagship is the uninspiring SoC. We expected more from the new Dimensity 8200 chip. It failed to meet our expectations in terms of power and efficiency, and there are considerably more powerful alternatives around that price point. However, it's hard to overlook the package as a whole. The 13T is now a proficient shooter, sans the selfie camera. It sports a flagship-grade display, decently fast charging, 4 years of full software support, IP68 ingress protection, and has dependable battery life, albeit not impressive. It covers almost all bases and offers a good value overall, so it gets the nod from us. Thanks for watching this video. For more updates,